Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting me to this special conference in front of distinguished guests and industry specialists and everybody. So my name is Mike Kayamori, and the topic that I would like to share with you today is very unique. I've spoken at many conferences, many events, but they've never asked me to talk about my personal journey from Boardroom to crypto unicorn. So because I won't be talking about the use case, I won't be talking about the technology, there's many more qualified people who can talk about that. So it's more of an experience that I would like to share with you today. So a little bit about myself. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Liquid. We were previously called Coin. And we operate in an exchange called CoinX or Coin Exchange. Prior to starting Liquid or Coin, I worked at SoftBank. So I was in charge of SoftBank's partnerships, joint ventures, investments in Southeast Asia and India, especially in markets like India and Indonesia, where the next billion people were coming online, and they were mobile native, they were mobile only. That was an opportunity for SoftBank. As we were a mobile internet company, it was our goal to connect everybody through the mobile internet. And through that time, we worked on joint ventures with operators, telcos, distributors, handset manufacturers, internet companies, portals, and we made hundreds and thousands of investments. I was involved in one of the first few investments in India, like e-commerce companies like Snapdeal, before starting Coin. And prior to that, I worked at a Silicon Valley VC, GlobeSpan Capital. This was the US investment arm of JAFCO, which was the largest venture capital in Japan. And we had 1.5 billion under management. So the experience at SoftBank and GlobeSpan Capital was investing and working with entrepreneurs. So I was always on the tangent of providing the capital to entrepreneurs who will disrupt the world, who will change the world, who will make a social impact. And that was something that I would always look at from the capital side. And at the same time, coincidentally, this was the period when I first got enamored and intrigued with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. So 2009 and 2010, so immediately after the global financial crisis, the Bitcoin white paper or the Satoshi white paper came out, and that was 2009, a year after the global financial crisis. And as you know, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, financial institutions that were in existence for over a century went out of business. These were banks and institutions that we trusted, that we thought it will never fail, went out of business. And as the antithesis of that, the Bitcoin white paper came out, the peer-to-peer payment, having ownership of your own assets. So the first wave of Bitcoin, and at the time it was only Bitcoin. So only this January was the 10th year anniversary of Bitcoin since it went mainnet. So it's only 10 years. And when you think about it, for the people in the business sector, people who are in internet, almost everybody has heard of Bitcoin. And when you think about that, any financial product, any new service, to have that kind of knowledge and understanding across the world is unheard of. So the first wave of Bitcoin in Silicon Valley was 2010. And it was spread across the valley where it was the internet of money, it was the digital cash, it was the future of finance. And that obviously as a junior partner at a VC firm, I was intrigued. So what is this? Is it digital currency? But it's not owned by any country. No central bank, no central government had ownership of this. And there was a limited amount. There was 21 million Bitcoin. And that's it. So obviously, I looked around, where can I buy it? Right? And there was no Coinbase, there was no other exchange. Smartphones in 2010 was a novelty. As a corporate, as someone working in the business sector, it was more BlackBerry. There wasn't a lot of open apps or something where I could buy crypto. So unfortunately, if I had bought at that time, it would have been a totally different speech today. But nonetheless, 2010, that was the first wave of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. But then I joined SoftBank. Right? So being in the VC industry for over 10 years, just chasing the next innovation and saying like our money is different from any other VC money, we'll take you to Asia, all these value-added services. That was okay, but I was over it. So then I joined SoftBank because we had a lot of co-investments. We invested in a mobile social gaming company called Zynga. We actually co-invested in the early days of the VR, AR called Second Life, where there was a virtual world and you were able to create your own world in there. So all of these interesting, innovative things we did together with SoftBank, and that allowed me to build a relationship with Masa and join SoftBank. And then they asked me to move to Singapore. So at the time, SoftBank was in discussions of acquiring one of the largest telcos here, not Sprint. So as part of that, we established a joint venture with Singtel. So it was Singtel SoftBank InnoVentures, and we were investing in interesting mobile internet companies. I was also in charge of Indonesia, India as well. And that was when the second wave of Bitcoin came, and that was 2013, when the one price of Bitcoin surpassed $1,000. And it was led by China and Asia, including Japan. So it wasn't the US. A lot of the times, innovation, adoption starts in the US. But in terms of Bitcoin, in 2013, it was Asia. So that was something that really refired my energy and passion towards understanding further of Bitcoin. And in 2013 was when exchanges started to happen. Right? So in the US, Coinbase launched in 2013. But when you looked across Asia, the number one exchange at the time was Mt. Gox. So, and as a person who was interested in buying Bitcoin this time, I had to buy it this time. So looking across and doing my own research, you can read on the bulletin boards that something was wrong with Mt. Gox. You can't get your money out. So at the time, that was kind of the moment where I thought, is this going to be real? If this is going to be real, someone needs to build an exchange that is trusted. And it should be an exchange that was built by bankers, someone who worked in the financial industry, not only tech enthusiasts or entrepreneurs who were tech savvy, who were ideology driven about the decentralization world of cryptocurrency, but someone who worked in financial industry, who understood safety, security, reliability, but also understanding the compliance side, the regulatory side, and the risk side. So I thought that was an opportunity, but I wasn't ready yet. So in 2013, I still wasn't ready. I was ready to buy crypto, but I wasn't ready to jump ship. But then, around that same time, because I was in charge of India and Indonesia, and I would go to India every other week, and I would see that 30%, 40% of the adult population still didn't have a bank account. Even in Indonesia, where there's hundreds, thousands, 10,000, thousands of islands where there was no bank. It was a cash-based economy. But the interesting thing as SoftBank was because we were promoting mobile internet, there were sub 100 handsets, sub $50 handsets now with Android. So we were giving it out. So we were trying to go from the handset, the distribution, to the operating, and the content. So we were looking at the entire value chain. And that was the aha moment. I saw people who didn't have bank accounts having smartphones. And if you had a smartphone and a data plan, and you had a mobile wallet, and you had digital currency, that was financial inclusion. So that was the aha moment for me in late 2013 to really understand the potential impact that this could have had. So I immediately brought up about this opportunity to my boss. Obviously, people didn't understand, so it was a little bit of a side project for me. So I'll walk you through. But working at SoftBank, working at a VC, really allowed me to be in tangent with a lot of entrepreneurs. So it was very different, even being in a corporate world, being on the board seat and talking about entrepreneurship, but actually doing it yourself in practice. Also, majoring in business, graduating with a law degree, I myself is not a developer, not an engineer. So when I talk with entrepreneurs and when I see successful startups and entrepreneurs, it's always a team. You need a co-founder, you need a management team. You can't do it by yourself. So that was when I met Mario, my co-founder, and he was also in Singapore at the time. He was working for Credit Suisse. He was their CTO of their fixed income, currency, and commodities division. So he built bond exchanges, commodity trading platforms, FX trading platforms. So to him, building exchanges was his entire professional career. So I met through a mutual friend, and I asked him, like, he was ready to leave banking because it was just, he was doing it for over 20 years. So I told him, what do you think of Bitcoin? So at the time, it was only Bitcoin. There was no Ethereum. There was none of these token economies, so it was only Bitcoin. So I asked Mario, what is your take on Bitcoin? And he said he was an active trader already. So I told him then, you've built exchanges your entire life. Why don't we build an exchange that is trusted, that is regulatory compliant, and that led to us starting a company together. Also, you can't just build a financial institution, a regulated, licensed company with a few people in a garage. So we needed to expand. So bringing in people who actually bring knowledge and skill sets that you don't have. So one of the things that as entrepreneurs typically go in is you hire good people and you tell them what to do. It doesn't work out. You bring in people who have the knowledge, the experience that will help you and help the company grow, and you let them do their business. So as you can see, there's a few people I brought in from SoftBank, but also there were people that we brought in from banking. Obviously, we believe that in due time, Bitcoin and cryptocurrency was going to be a financial asset class, a new emerging financial asset class. So from day one, we knew that we wanted to do a proper exchange. So we brought people who were equally passionate, who were able to jump ship from traditional finance into the entrepreneurial world. So we've been, it's about 5 years. So May was our 5-year anniversary as a startup. So we're about 340 people, 28 nationalities, 8 offices. We started out in Singapore. So I'm very proud to say that we started out in Singapore. There's a few nuggets that I wanted to share is to this date, we still don't have a corporate bank account. And because of that, we cannot be GST registered, right? So we're corporate registered, but we cannot get a GST registration number, so we couldn't pay taxes. So it's fascinating how these challenges that we have. But then again, as a startup and an entrepreneur, there's multiple challenges. It's a roller coaster. So you have to be able to enjoy it, or else everything's going to be a risk and it's going to be a lot of pressure. Going back, for someone who's worked their entire life in a corporate environment, in an executive environment, you can't just go to become an entrepreneur just to make money. There needs to be something that you're really passionate about, something that you feel like this is worth doing for you to completely change your life. Because entrepreneurship, to me, and I preach with everybody I speak to, is not a profession, it's a lifestyle. Because you live and breathe entrepreneurship because it's very different. If you slow down, your company dies. Even if you're on the right path, if you stop, you're going to get run over. So you really need to have a mission, a statement or something so that it allows you to continue to move on and move forward. And that's why, as I shared with you, like in India, in Indonesia, where people didn't have bank accounts, but people were starting to have smartphones, and they were starting to buy these digital currency, cryptocurrencies. So to me, crypto blockchain was making financial services accessible to all. This was a large enough agenda for me to think that the remaining 10 years, 20 years, 30 years of my professional career was worthwhile to go into this space. One more, this is an interesting survey that we did about a year ago. So March 2018. And this was after the meltdown in crypto. There was a big hack in Japan, and media and everybody was talking about how this was too much speculation, it was money laundering, all these issues. So we did a survey. Close to 4,000 people, our customers, replied to our survey, and we asked them, what is cryptocurrency to you? And this is their answer, right? It's potential, it's future, it's value, it's currency. Yes, there's a little bit of speculation here, but people don't talk about money laundering, buying this for illicit drugs or pornography, none of that. And also, 70% of our active customers are the millennials. So when I talk to traditional financial institutions in Japan, there was this fascinating data. So one executive told me, hey, Mike-san, do you know the average age of our customers? This is Japan, the aging population. Right? So they said the average age of their customers was 65 years old. And they comprised 95% of the asset under management. Right? So in another 10 years, they said their business could die because their customers will die. Right? And they said they worry every single day when their customer comes with their son or daughter to their branch, because they think that they're going to close the account, and what their daughter or son does is they'll go to an online service. So they're scared that despite being in business for 50 years, 80 years, that their business could be extinct in less than 10, 15 years. But this was interesting. So in hard times, I always look at this chart and look at how the millennials, the 20 years old, the 30-year-olds, will look at cryptocurrency, and they look at that as the potential and the future. That keeps your engine moving. So I apologize that I'm taking a lot of time talking about my journey and all those, because normally this is 2 minutes and then I talk about our product. But today it's more about sharing how I came here and what I do. So 2014 was when I started this company. It was the service was CoinX, proudly started out of Singapore. At the time, we were still able to get a bank account because the banks didn't know what we were doing. So, so when we started, it was only Bitcoin. So it was only Bitcoin. This was 2014. So it was around 5 years since Bitcoin started. So as an exchange, and there was no stable coin, there was no token ecosystem, there was none of these. So if you wanted to be an exchange, you had to have Bitcoin and you had to have fiat. So we started out with USD, SGD, JPY. We opened up with the OCBC, we opened up with DBS, we opened up Standard Chartered. Obviously, they did due diligence. We talked about how we do our KYC and AML and all these. They were satisfied. But they were satisfied only when your transaction volume were a few million a month. But once it started like 50 million, 100 million, when people started depositing tens of millions of dollars, they were like, uh-oh, what's going on, right? So some banks will give you a notice. Some will just shut you down, right? And it gets locked. So we had a lot of challenges maintaining bank accounts. And then through one of our shareholders, they said Japan was legislating Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And this was 2016. So 2 years after we started our company, through our angel investor, they said I should meet the Japan FSA, which is the equivalent of MAS of Japan. So we met the people at Japan FSA, and they were saying that they were going to pass a bill specifically around cryptocurrency within the Payments Act. So you can use cryptocurrency for payments and exchanges. So we decided to relocate our headquarters to Japan. So until then, Singapore was our headquarters, but then we decided to move our headquarters to Japan. We became the first global exchange to be licensed. So this was 2017, September. That afternoon, I went to the JFSA again and said, we're going to do an ICO. So I didn't want to disrupt the license registration process because ICOs were new as well. But mid to late 2017, the token economy, the ICO, so using Ethereum ERC20 to raise capital, that was starting to take off. And as a company that's immersed in blockchain and crypto, we had to eat our own dog food. As an exchange, we thought it was an opportunity to show how to do an ICO and use that best practices into our platform. So yes, the word of ICO has a negative stigma now. So people are using the word IEO, initial exchange offering. But we actually did our ICO on our platform, full KYC clearance of all the customers. So essentially, we did the first IEO in the world. So we raised our token, our cash token at the time, getting the blessing of the Japan FSA, using that knowledge and lessons learned into an ICO mission control, so which is an IEO for token issuers to raise capital on our platform. So until then, if a token issuer wanted to raise capital, they would raise it on their own website. They would do an atomic swap. They will say on a certain day, wire your Ethereum or Bitcoin, we'll give you our token. And then they will talk to exchanges to have it listed. But we changed the way people raise capital by doing that on an exchange where it's KYC cleared. So we did have multiple services from coin exchange to cryptos, which was a crypto-only exchange. But then talking with regulators, they don't distinguish between a crypto-only exchange or fiat crypto exchange. It was same, the value was moving, the exchange was happening. So they said they're going to regulate in a similar fashion. So we've decided to merge all the services into one, and we rebranded our service into Liquid. So as I explained before, 2017, we did our ICO. The beauty of crypto and ICO is that there were 9 people from 98 countries who participated in our ICO. So maybe from a regulator perspective, that's like a uh-oh. But from an entrepreneur perspective, it's actually democratizing fundraising, capital raising. As long as you do it in a proper regulatory way, it's one of the best ways. As an entrepreneur, when your constraint of raising capital is angel investors or selected VCs, where you're able to raise from people who support your vision, support your product, and they're willing to fund it and use that token to pay for your services later on, that was democratization of fundraising as well. So we had people, and in the world there's about 200 unique nation states, so close to half of those participated in our ICO. And also we made sure that nobody from the US would participate, nobody from China will participate. As a pro-regulatory exchange, we made it our mandate to make sure that we comply. And we had close to 5,000 people participating in our ICO. So another interesting thing I wanted to share with you is how the evolution of currency. So I always use this from a VC fund called Pantera Capital. But early, in order to preserve your value, your worth, you use something that was immutable. You couldn't move, people couldn't steal. Obviously before that, people used seashells and precious stones. But then it changed to gold, silver, commodities, and then it became national currencies that were backed by the gold standard. But over time, everything is becoming digital. If people wanted to recreate gold in the 21st century, I think it's Bitcoin. So when I look at the evolution of currency, we're not going to go back, and we're just going to go forward. And when you think of it, we're going back to the future where currencies were there before nation states were born. When people exchanged crops, with cattle. They needed something, a medium of exchange, and that was even before nation states were born. So 2009 was when the Satoshi white paper came out, and but when you look at it, gold had 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 years to be what it is today. I'm not saying cryptocurrency and Bitcoin will need another 5,000 years, but when you look at only within the last 10 years, how it's been recognized in the world, it's pretty astonishing. And even in cryptocurrency or digital currency, it itself is also evolving. So in 2014, when I started our company, it was only Bitcoin. But then fast forward just only 4 to 5 years, and then there's these pure cryptocurrencies, there's these utility tokens, now we're talking about security tokens, asset-backed tokens, stable coins, and even within utility tokens, there's loyalty, there's payment tokens. For securities, there's equity, debt, asset-backed. Stable coins, there's fiat-pegged, asset-pegged, algorithmic ones. This is only within 5 years since we started this company. So what does it look like in another 5 years, 10 years, right? It's a new asset class. So when I started, people looked at Bitcoin as another currency, a shiny new Forex. So we looked at it as a small segment of the foreign exchange market. But now with asset-backed tokens, security tokens, and the way it has evolved, we look at this as a crypto and blockchain could potentially disrupt and transform the entire financial ecosystem. So as an exchange, and similar to e-commerce, unless you have a brand, if you're like an Hermes or a Gucci, you can have your own standalone. But if that's not the case, you need to be an Amazon. You have to have the most SKUs, the most products, the most financing ways, right? So as an exchange, obviously we have a token listing committee, but after that, we want to have as many tokens as possible. And it needs to be, the platform needs to be stable, scalable, reliable. It needs to have uptime. It needs to be safe and secure. And also it needs to work with the existing financial processes and ecosystem in the regulation. So we're a little different from a lot of the crypto business to consumer services. We're an exchange of exchange. So what does that mean? So we work with other exchanges. We work with payments and wallet companies. We work with banks and financial institutions, broker-dealers. We work with new entrants. I believe in a world where everything becomes digital and there's hundreds and thousands of tokens, whether if it's utility or security tokens or pure cryptocurrencies. Is everybody going to build their own exchange? No. Right? In the past, in the fiat world, this was central banks and global banks that were providing liquidity. In crypto, because it's decentralized, there is no one entity who's going to provide that. So someone has to provide that liquidity to up-and-coming exchanges, to wallet companies, to broker-dealers who want to offer security tokens or utility tokens. They all need liquidity. And we are here. Obviously, we have a direct-to-consumer business as well, and that's Liquid, but we provide liquidity to people who will come into this space. I believe in a world where ATMs you can buy cryptocurrency, convenience stores you can buy and exchange cryptocurrency, banks, post offices. So we will provide that liquidity and if necessary, the platform for that as well. So we obviously in Japan, we've already signed up all these entities, internet companies, because we're a regulated exchange. And globally, we're talking with financial institutions, stock markets, and exchanges as well. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, there's been up and down. It's a roller coaster. 2017, the price of Bitcoin went from $1,000 to $20,000. 2018, it went from $20,000 to $4,000. So obviously, a lot of companies started laying off, streamlining their business, big hacks, shutting down companies, especially in Japan, where the largest hack happened in 2014 in Mt. Gox. The second largest happened in Japan again in 2018, February in CoinCheck. The pendulum shifted back. The regulators cramped down. They sanctioned all the exchanges who were operating at the time. All the applications and licenses were delayed. No listing, all ICOs halted. And it led to increased security and regulation. But a week ago, the Japan FSA passed a new amendment. So it was not only the Payment Services Act that they amended, but they also amended the Financial Instrument and Exchange Act. So now the derivative side, the security token, the capital raising, all of these are part of the regulation. So now you can see in 2019, the market is coming back. As I said below, Japan was the first economic powerhouse to put regulation, and that was 2017, 2 years ago. Countries like US, they're now looking at ICOs as all security tokens. There's countries like China that bans ICO in exchanges. But then Singapore is becoming a hub of Southeast Asia. And now surrounding countries like Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia are putting in regulation. So this is happening. And what I preach my team is you can't be half compliant. You can't be half regulatory compliant. Similar to you can't be half pregnant. So we are one of the few exchanges that are pro-regulation from day one. And you can see that our business has continued to grow. So this is in terms of Bitcoin, our transaction volume. But in US dollars, we had our largest month in April, which was $9 billion. In May, we had the most recent numbers, which was 11 billion. So we can see that the market, people said crypto was dead, that the exchange business was dying. It's not, and it's continuing to grow. We're still very early, and the market is very interesting. So we always look at ourselves with other regulatory compliant exchanges. We don't look at the offshore exchanges because it's still not a level playing field. But we work with regulators, we work with financial institutions, and it shows on our growth of our business. So to end my speech today is, when is the right timing to potentially move from a corporate job to the crypto space? There is no right timing, right? If you're passionate, if you believe in it, as you can see with Jeff Bezos, right? I knew that if I failed, I wouldn't regret that, but I knew that one thing I might regret is not trying, right? Failure is okay, but you need to be passionate enough to take that risk. And it's okay, you just need to be right once, you need to be successful once. And the more mistakes that you have, the more you learn from that and become stronger and better. So with that, thank you very much.